My name is Aaliyah Carter, and that morning I believed my life was finally sliding into place. I sat on the stiff plastic chair in the antenatal clinic, one hand on my belly, the other clutching my appointment card. Marcus had just gone to move the car. He said the way he parked might get us ticketed, and we did not need extra bills with the baby on the way. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant and old air conditioning. A muted television showed a daytime talk show no one watched. Other pregnant women sat in a scattered silence, some scrolling their phones, some rubbing their backs. I watched the double doors that led to the consulting rooms, thinking about the scan, thinking about the sound of a heartbeat I had not yet heard. My name was called. Mrs. Carter. I stood, smoothed my dress and followed the nurse inside. She was a slim woman in navy scrubs, with tired kindness in her eyes. Her badge read Nurse D. Walker. She recorded my weight, blood pressure, the usual routine. Her voice carried a softness that made me feel safe. "How far along are we today, Mrs. Carter?" she asked. 12 weeks, I replied, trying not to smile too widely. The number felt like a small miracle. She nodded, tapping on her tablet. Her eyes flicked from the screen to my face, then back again. Something in her expression shifted. Her forehead creased slightly, as if a puzzle had landed in her lap without warning. "Your husband is Marcus Carter, right?" she asked, her tone careful. "Yes," I said. "He is outside, parking the car." Her eyes lingered on mine. There was hesitation there, and something else that raised the hair on the back of my neck. Instinct told me that whatever came next would not be part of standard procedure. "Mrs. Carter," she said quietly, "have you been to this clinic before?" "Recently." "No. This is my first visit here." She inhaled slowly and glanced toward the door, then back to me. Her hand slipped into her pocket and came out holding her phone. She unlocked it, scrolled through something, then turned the screen so I could see. "I need you to tell me if this is him," she said. On the screen was a grainy security camera image from the reception area. The date stamp at the top showed last month. A man walked slightly ahead of a woman, his hand resting against the small of her back. His profile was turned just enough for me to recognize the line of his jaw, the familiar slope of his shoulders. My heart stumbled. "That is Marcus," I whispered. Nurse Walker gave a slow, regretful nod. "Last month," she said, her voice almost apologetic, "this same man brought another woman here. Not for a checkup. For an abortion." The words sliced through the air between us. Abortion. The room felt smaller. The fluorescent light buzzed loudly in my ears. My first thought was that there had to be a mistake. A mix-up. A coincidence. Any explanation that did not involve my husband escorting another woman to end a pregnancy. My eyes slid back to the screen. The woman beside him had her head bowed, her hair wrapped in a colorful scarf. The receptionist's side angle caught the profile of her face. Her body language screamed discomfort, the kind that comes from shame and pain mixed together. Recognition crashed into me with brutal clarity. "I know her," I said, my voice cracking. "Who is she?" the nurse asked gently. "That is Tosha," I replied. "My friend. The one who helped plan my wedding. The one who threw my birthday dinner this year." My throat tightened, and the air in the room turned thick, as if I had tried to breathe underwater. Images of Tosha flooded my mind. Late-night phone calls. Shared jokes. Matching bridesmaid robes. Her lips pressed to my cheek as she whispered how happy she was for me and Marcus. Nurse Walker placed her phone on the counter and lowered her voice further. "I would not usually show a patient something like this," she said. "It is not standard practice. The only reason I did is because when you gave his name, I recognized it. I remembered that he signed some of the consent forms with the woman. He told us he was her partner. The way he acted, the way he spoke, did not feel casual. My vision blurred. I pressed my palms against the edge of the examination table to steady myself. "He told you he was her partner," I repeated, the words tasting bitter. "Yes." My mind raced through questions. How long had it been going on? How did they meet? Had she been pregnant with his child? Did they talk about that baby while she sat across from me eating my cooking, smiling at my joy? Outside the room, I heard distant laughter from another corridor, the sound painfully out of place. The baby inside me existed in that moment as both anchor and weight. I had wanted this child so deeply. Now everything around that desire felt stained. Are you all right to continue with the appointment? Nurse Walker asked. We can pause, or reschedule if you prefer. I want to hear my baby's heartbeat, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Whatever Marcus has done, this child is still mine. She nodded, sincerity shining in her eyes. We will take care of you, she said. That is a promise. As I lay back on the examination couch and lifted my top, my heart pounded with a new rhythm. The ultrasound gel felt cold against my skin. The little machine began its search, gliding across my belly. Then it came, faint yet undeniable, a quick, steady sound like a distant drum. My baby's heartbeat. Proof of life inside a world that had just shifted beneath my feet. Tears slipped down the sides of my face, pooling in my hair. I listened to that sound and tried to reconcile two realities at once. In one, I was a woman finally hearing her child, filled with gratitude and awe. In the other, I was a wife who had just seen evidence that her husband had walked another woman through a door I had never known existed in his life. Marcus knocked lightly on the door a few minutes later, his voice cheerful as he asked if everything was all right. I turned my head toward the sound, my hand still resting over the spot where the heartbeat had echoed. Nothing would ever be the same again. Before that day at the clinic, I had always described myself as a steady woman. The kind of person others called reliable, the one they turned to when life became messy or uncertain. My mother used to say I carried the women in our family on my back long before I even understood what that meant. I grew up on the south side, in a small flat that smelled of hair grease, fried chicken and incense. My mother, Loretta, worked 2 jobs most of my childhood. Cleaning offices in the early mornings, checking groceries in the evenings. My father floated in and out, bringing gifts sometimes, excuses most of the time. My brother Jamal slid through school just enough to keep teachers from hounding him, but his heart belonged to basketball courts and neighborhood corners. I was the one who learned to stretch a packet of rice across 3 days. I cooked, braided hair, ironed uniforms and filled in forms my mother did not have time to read. Responsibility wrapped itself around me early, not as a punishment, but as a necessity. Somewhere in all of that, a quiet pride took root. I liked being dependable. I liked being the one people could trust. Church on Sundays gave my mother enough fuel to make it through the week. I sang in the choir, wrote my homework in the back pew when rehearsals dragged past my bedtime. I watched older women hold themselves upright through heartbreak, disappointment, and tiredness. They talked about love, survival, and God in the same breath. Those women taught me that strength did not need to be loud. College was my first taste of choosing something just for myself. I studied early childhood education, fascinated by how small children learned language and trust. I wanted to understand how to offer what I had missed. The long bus rides across the city, the late nights in the library, the cheap instant noodles, all of it felt worth it whenever I stepped into a classroom full of 4-year-olds with sticky fingers and open faces. Marcus came into my life halfway through my degree. He was tall, with a smile that slid easily across his face, the kind of smile that made people relax. He worked in building maintenance on campus, fixing boilers and windows, replacing light bulbs in corridors. Our first real conversation happened when the radiator in the early childhood lab stopped working in November. "It is freezing in here," I had complained to my friend Keisha, rubbing my hands together. Minutes later, Marcus walked in with his toolbox, whistling under his breath. He knelt by the radiator, joking about the campus' ancient heating system, and before I knew it, I was laughing. After that he seemed to appear at random moments. In the cafeteria, outside the library, on the path leading to the bus stop. Each meeting felt accidental, yet suspiciously well-timed. He called me teacher lady at first. There was a lightness about him that contrasted with my habit of taking everything seriously. He talked about wanting to start his own contracting business one day. He told me about his mother in Georgia, his little sister who still called him for advice on everything. He listened when I spoke about my family, about my mother's tired eyes, about my determination not to repeat certain cycles. Our first date happened at a small diner near campus. We ordered burgers and shared stories, our knees accidentally brushing under the table. He told me I had kind eyes. I told him he had a calming voice. Those early conversations felt honest. At least, that is how I remember them. After graduation, I found work at a community nursery. The pay was modest, the days long, yet the children filled parts of my heart I had not even realized were empty. Marcus picked me up from work when he could, sometimes bringing takeaway on the nights he knew I would be too tired to cook. He called my mother Ma without hesitation. Jamal teased him but respected the way he showed up. Our wedding was small but joyful. We saved what we could, and Tosha handled the rest through pure creativity. She, Keisha, and I had been friends since secondary school. We had shared hairstyles, heartbreaks, and homework. Tosha knew my tastes so well that I trusted her with everything from the color scheme to the playlist. The day I walked down that aisle, I felt seen and cherished. People said Marcus and I made a good team. I believed them. We discussed our goals, our debt, our families. We talked about children, agreeing to wait a little so we could stabilize our finances. When we finally decided to try, it took longer than I expected. Negative tests piled up. Each month, hope rose and fell like a tide. The positive test arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. I stood in the bathroom staring at 2 pink lines, my hands shaking. Marcus wrapped me in his arms when I told him, lifting me off the floor, both of us laughing through tears. He said we were about to become a proper family. That was the woman I was before the clinic. A woman who believed in hard work, in loyalty, in building something solid with a man who said all the right words. A woman who thought she understood sacrifice because she had lived it among bills and responsibilities. Betrayal belonged to other people then, stories whispered over kitchen tables, not the centerpiece of my own life. If anyone had told me that my husband would walk another woman into a clinic and stand beside her as she ended a pregnancy, then return home to kiss my forehead and hold me as I cried over another negative test, I would have dismissed them as cruel or confused. I knew men cheated. I had seen that growing up. What I had not prepared myself for was that someone I loved would fold deceit so neatly into our shared routines that I could not see the edges. That day at the hospital stripped away a layer of innocence I had not realized I still carried. The steady woman, the reliable one, the nurturer. She did not disappear. She simply realized that all the giving in the world could not stop another person from choosing selfishness. Looking back, the first sign of trouble did not arrive at the clinic. It crept in quietly months earlier, on a night that looked ordinary at the time. It was late on a Thursday. I sat at the dining table correcting worksheets from the nursery. Fat loops of handwriting covered the pages, some letters backwards, some floating above the lines. The television hummed in the background, some basketball game Marcus watched half-heartedly. My phone buzzed beside my tea mug. A message from Tosha. Girl, I am feeling rough tonight. Cramps beating me down. You up? I smiled and typed back. I am up. You want to talk or you want me to drop some painkillers by your place? She replied quickly. You are always offering rescue missions. I am okay, just tired. Bleeding heavy this month. We chatted a bit about work, about a silly video she had seen, about a new restaurant she wanted us to try. Nothing in those messages hinted at anything deeper. She signed off with a heart emoji and a promise to call over the weekend. Marcus glanced over. Tosha again? He asked. Yes, I said. She is not feeling well. He nodded without much interest and turned back to the game. That moment, insignificant at the time, would haunt me later. I replayed it in my mind, wondering if that heavy bleeding had been something other than what she claimed. There had been other small things. A work trip Marcus took that seemed to appear suddenly. He said a contractor he sometimes helped needed him on an out-of-town job for a couple of days. The timing coincided with my ovulation window. He laughed when I mentioned it, kissing my cheek and promising to make up the days when he returned. Another time, he came home smelling of perfume that was not mine. It clung to his shirt in a light, floral cloud. I pointed it out, and he grinned, telling me one of the women at work hugged him after he fixed the office heating system during a power cut. I remember rolling my eyes, teasing him about being a hero, then washing the shirt with a touch more force than necessary. There was the way his phone began to live face down on the table. Once upon a time, he would leave it anywhere, unlocked, unguarded. Recently, he took it into the bathroom or kept it in his pocket, his thumb moving quickly whenever a notification chimed. I noticed, of course. Notice came with the kind of attentiveness I had always possessed. Trust made me file those details away instead of confronting them directly. I did not want to become the kind of woman who searched through phones or interrogated late arrivals. I wanted to believe our foundation was stronger than that. Sometimes at night, when he fell asleep quickly and I lay awake, I thought about my mother. She had never been surprised by my father's absence. Hurt, yes. Exhausted, yes. Surprised, no. She used to say that when a man wanted to be caught, he would leave his lies scattered like breadcrumbs. When he did not want to be caught, he would learn to hide them in plain sight. I reminded myself that Marcus was not my father. He did not drink. He did not disappear for days. He paid bills, fixed things around the house, rubbed my feet when they ached. He came to church with me occasionally, even though he claimed services ran too long. He spoke about our future with conviction, about buying a bigger place once his business grew. The first time he missed one of my prenatal appointments, he had a reason ready. A pipe burst at one of the buildings his company serviced, and he had to deal with the emergency. He apologized several times, sent me text messages throughout the appointment, asked me how everything went the moment I walked through the door. I held on to those signs of care like someone gripping a railing. They were real after all. He did do those things. The problem grew in the spaces between them, in the small absences, the unexplained coincidences, the slightly too rehearsed explanations. My friendship with Tosha acted as a mirror to my marriage. She knew most of my worries, my dreams, my frustrations. We talked about our partners, our finances, our bodies. She never mentioned being pregnant. Never mentioned Marcus beyond casual comments about him being a good man for me. On the rare occasion that Marcus and Tosha found themselves in the same room without me, I did not feel threatened. Their greetings were friendly but not intimate. No lingering hugs, no long conversations that excluded me. If there were glances exchanged behind my back, I did not see them. The hairline cracks only become visible from a distance. Up close, they looked like the natural texture of life. Work stress, period pain, busy schedules, phones that needed to be close at hand because of clients. In the children's storybooks I read at the nursery, villains announced themselves. Their intentions were clear, their betrayals dramatic. Real life moved differently. It took a nurse with a tired face and a conscience too restless to let my ignorance continue to pull those cracks into sharp focus. There are stories where the person betrayed blames themselves for missing the signs. I refused to carry that burden entirely. I noticed enough to feel uneasy. I trusted enough to look past my unease. Trust is not a flaw. Misuse of it is. At least, that is what I told myself as the days after the clinic began to stretch into a quiet war inside my own mind. After the appointment at the clinic, after hearing my baby's heartbeat and seeing the blurred outline on the screen, my mind reached back, searching for something to anchor itself. It found a memory that used to bring comfort. The same memory turned into a source of pain. 2 years earlier, on a rainy afternoon, I had come down with a bad case of the flu. My body ached, my throat burned, and even light felt aggressive. I lay on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, watching raindrops race each other down the windowpane. Marcus came home early that day. He had stopped to buy medicine, ginger tea, and the exact brand of soup my mother used to give me when I was ill. He pushed my hair off my forehead, kissed me softly and said, "I have got you." He turned on my favorite show, placed the remote within reach and tucked the blanket around my shoulders just right. Tosha dropped by later that evening. She brought fresh orange juice and a pack of honey lozenges. She sat at the edge of the sofa, rubbing my leg, making jokes about how I sounded like an old man whenever I tried to speak. She caught Marcus' eye at one point and said, "You are doing a good job taking care of my girl." I watched him smile back at her, a brotherly kind of smile, or so I thought at the time. They high-fived over my head, united in their mission to nurse me back to health. I remember feeling wrapped in gratitude, surrounded by people who loved me. In the days after the clinic revelation, that same memory kept replaying, but with new layers. The way Tosha's hand lingered a moment longer on my leg. The slight tension in Marcus' shoulders when their eyes met. The quickness with which they both looked away. None of it had raised alarms then. Now, the scene felt crowded with unspoken things. I lay awake nights, my fingers resting on my belly, replaying other scenes. The time Tosha insisted on helping Marcus carry boxes when we moved into our current flat. The afternoon he went to drop something off at her place when her car broke down. The way she sometimes asked me so casually if we had thought more seriously about having kids, her eyes searching my face with a softness I now struggled to interpret. Memory can be cruel. It does not simply replay the past. It edits, highlights and emphasizes aspects that fit the current narrative. I knew that. The rational part of me understood that I could not trust every new interpretation. Yet emotion did not care much for rationality. Betrayal rewired the way my brain organized information. A week after the clinic visit, I sat at my mother's kitchen table, watching her season chicken. Jamal had stopped by to borrow money again, earning himself a lecture about priorities before he left in a sulk. The smell of garlic and pepper coated the air. "You are quiet today," my mother observed, wiping her hands on a towel. "Something wrong with the baby?" "The baby is fine," I replied. "I heard the heartbeat." "That is good news," she said, a small smile softening her features. "So what is bothering you?" I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to spill the nurse's words onto the table like broken glass and ask her to help me pick through the pieces. My mouth opened, then closed again. My mother had already carried enough. Years of disappointment had carved faint lines around her mouth. Telling her might bring wisdom, but it would also bring worry. She would lose sleep, pacing her small flat, muttering prayers. I did not want to see that look in her eyes, the one that said life had hurt her child in a way she could not easily fix. "I am just tired, Ma," I said instead. "Work and pregnancy together are no joke." She nodded slowly. "You need to rest more. That man of yours should be doing extra around the house." "He is helping," I lied. "He has been good." She watched me carefully, as if some part of her sensed the gap between my words and the truth. She had the kind of intuition that came from weathering too many storms. She did not push it, though. She simply reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You know this baby is a blessing," she said. "No matter what happens with anything or anyone else, you remember that." Her words settled inside me like a small, steady light. That night at home, I sat on the edge of the bed with the photo printout of the ultrasound in my hands. The little gray shape in the center looked more like a smudge than a person, yet I felt connected to it more deeply than to almost anything else. Marcus came into the room, removing his watch, his keys clinking on the dresser. "That our little peanut?" he asked, nodding toward the picture. "Yes," I replied. He sat beside me, his shoulder brushing mine, and took the image gently. His face softened as he stared at it. "Cannot believe we made this," he murmured. The room filled with a silence that pressed on my chest. I looked at him, really looked, trying to see past the familiar features into whatever truth sat behind his eyes. I thought about asking him straight then. Did you take Tosha to that clinic? Is that baby you helped her abort yours? Did you lie to me every time you held me while I cried? The questions crowded behind my teeth. My tongue felt thick. Fear joined them. Fear of the answer. Fear of what it would mean to say the words out loud and watch his face react. In that moment, the memory of him caring for me when I had the flu played side by side with the image of him walking another woman through a clinical door. Both were true. Both belonged to him. Both belonged to me. I realized then that betrayal does not erase the good memories. It contaminates them. Every kind act becomes suspect, every sweet word tinged with poison. The pain lies partly in the past itself being pulled into question. I went to bed that night beside a man whose breathing I could predict in my sleep, whose weight on the mattress had been a comfort for years. My eyes burned, but no tears came. The baby shifted slightly as if reminding me I was not alone. That memory of being cared for when I was sick still hurt twice. Once because it had been genuine comfort. Once because the same hands had held another woman's fear in a room I had never entered. The days began to develop a new texture. On the surface, life continued. I went to work at the nursery, sang songs with children, wiped sticky faces and mediated disputes over crayons. Parents thanked me at pickup, their trust in me undisturbed by the storm brewing inside. At home, the air felt thicker. Conversation with Marcus became slightly more deliberate, each of us choosing words as if navigating a room full of fragile ornaments. One evening I stood at the stove stirring a pot of rice, the scent of simmering tomatoes and onions wrapping around me. Marcus came in, placed his phone on the counter and moved to kiss my cheek. I flinched before I could stop myself. He paused, his lips hovering above my skin. "You all right?" he asked. "Just tired," I replied, forcing a small smile. "My back is killing me." "You should sit down," he said. "I will finish this." I wanted to let him. I wanted to accept the help without swallowing suspicion. Instead, I shook my head. "I have it. Could you set the table?" He studied me for a moment, then nodded and began to pull plates from the cupboard. His movements sounded louder than usual. Drawers closing, cutlery clinking. My nerves were already stretched thin. Every sound scraped. That night, as we lay in bed, he scrolled his phone longer than usual. The blue light painted his face, his thumb moving in small flicks. I turned my back to him, staring at the wall. Eventually, he put the phone down and spoons his body around mine, his hand resting on my belly. "You know I love you, right?" he whispered. "Yes," I answered, though the word felt uncertain. His hand tightened slightly, as if he needed reassurance as much as I did. Tosha's absence grew louder too. She had always been present in my life, even when we were both busy. Now, days passed without messages. Her social media posts slowed, then stalled. Whenever I hovered over her name on my phone, my chest tightened. One afternoon, Keisha and I met for lunch at a small cafe near the nursery. I pushed salad around my plate more than I ate it. She watched me with narrowed eyes. "You are jumpy," she said between bites of her sandwich. "Something going on with the pregnancy?" "The pregnancy is fine," I answered. "Everything looks good so far." "Then what is up with you and Marcus?" she asked. "You have said his name like it is a problem 3 times since we sat down." I blinked. "Have I?" "Yes," she replied. "I know you, Lee. Talk to me." The urge to unload surged so strongly that I gripped my glass to steady myself. Telling Keisha would mean speaking the situation into existence, shifting it from muddled thoughts in my head into hard words in the air. That step felt big. "I am just hormonal," I said weakly. "You know how pregnancy can mess with your head." She rolled her eyes. "Do not blame everything on hormones. They are not this powerful." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "If you need to talk, I am here," she added. "No judgment." Her words hung between us. I nodded, but my mouth stayed closed. The tension at home had small eruptions. One Saturday, Marcus came in late from a supposed job with a client. His shirt was crumpled, and his eyes looked heavy. "You said you would be back by 6, I said. "The clock showed nearly 9. "Job took longer than expected," he replied, kicking off his shoes. "You know how it is. You could have called," I pointed out. "Or sent a message." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "My phone died." That answer sparked something in me. "We have a whole car charger," I said, my voice rising slightly. "Backup power pack in the glove compartment. Do not act like contacting me is some impossible mission." He stared at me, surprised by the sharpness. "Where is this coming from?" he asked. "You know I have been chasing these contracts. I am doing this for us." "There it is," I said quietly. "That phrase." "What phrase?" "For us," I replied. Silence stretched. His jaw clenched, and a muscle in his cheek twitched. "So now I cannot even say I am doing things for our family?" he asked. "You know what, forget it. I am going to shower." He walked away, leaving my words hanging in the air. My hands trembled slightly. I felt caught between my old habit of smoothing tension and a new urge to let the discomfort sit. The walls of our flat seemed to absorb the strain. Little things irritated me more. The way he left socks near the bed. The half-finished mug of coffee on the table. The dishes in the sink. Each minor annoyance layered onto the larger, unspoken issue. Inside my body, the baby grew. Nausea began to fade, replaced by new aches. My belly rounded slightly, changing the way my clothes sat. Coworkers commented on the glow they claimed to see. Children patted my stomach and asked when the baby would come out. I smiled, answered their questions, and went home to a house where every conversation felt like walking across a floor with hidden weak boards. One evening, I caught Marcus on the balcony, talking on the phone in a low voice. The sliding door was almost closed, but a small gap let some of the sound through. "That is not a good idea," he was saying. "You know how complicated things already are." My heart thudded. I stepped closer, my hand hovering above the handle. The urge to fling the door open and demand to know who he spoke to scratched at my skin. He paused, then sighed. "I will figure something out," he said eventually. "Just do not call me at this time again." He ended the call and stood staring at the city lights for a moment before coming inside. When he saw me, he forced a smile. "Cool air feels good tonight," he said. I kept my face neutral. "Who were you talking to?" "A client," he answered automatically. "They have no sense of time." My eyes searched his face. His expression did not crack. The tension had become a third presence in our home, invisible yet heavy. Neither of us acknowledged it directly. Each day that passed without confrontation increased its weight. Some part of me believed that if I could just hold out until after the baby arrived, things would stabilize. Another part knew that ignoring fractures did not make them disappear. It only made the eventual break more dramatic. The house that once felt like a sanctuary now hummed with unspoken truths, pressed into the plaster and hidden in the corners. Every room contained a memory that had begun to shift under the pressure of new knowledge. I did not yet know it, but the quiet turning point was approaching. The turning point came on an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. The weather sat between seasons, not fully warm, not fully cool. I had finished my shift at the nursery early due to a staff meeting cancellation and decided to use the extra time to pick up some groceries before heading home. On my way through the neighborhood, I passed the bus stop near Tosh's flat. The bench stood empty, a small pile of discarded leaflets gathered in the corner. Something pulled at me. The need to see her, to look her in the eye and read whatever sat there, became too strong to ignore. I turned the corner and walked toward her building. My feet felt heavy, each step an argument between fear and determination. Her building had the same peeling paint and cracked walkway it always had. Children's voices floated from an open window somewhere above. I stood outside the entrance for a long moment, my hand resting on my belly. If I rang her buzzer, everything might change. Ignorance, even painful ignorance, would no longer be an option. I pressed the button beside her name. There was a pause. Then a familiar voice crackled through the speaker. "Hello. Tosha," I said, surprised by how steady my tone sounded. "It is me. Aaliyah." Another pause. A small click, as if her thumb had slipped on the intercom button. "Lee," she said finally. "Hey. I was not expecting you. Can I come up?" I asked. Silence stretched long enough that I thought she might refuse. Then the door buzzed as the lock released. Her flat smelled of shea butter and something faintly medicinal. She stood in the doorway in leggings and an oversized t-shirt, her hair tied up in a scarf. She looked thinner than I remembered, the hollows under her eyes more pronounced. "Come in," she said, stepping back. I walked inside, my eyes scanning the room. The same sofa, the same coffee table, the same framed photos on the wall. One of those photos showed us together at my wedding reception, our arms around each other, our smiles wide. "You look good," she said, her gaze dropping briefly to my belly. "Pregnancy suits you." "Thank you," I replied. "You look tired." She laughed weakly. "Work is stressful. You know how it is." We sat facing each other, an invisible line drawn between us. My fingers twisted the strap of my bag. "I went to the clinic last week," I began. Her body stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Clinic?" she repeated. "Yes," I said. "The antenatal clinic on Maple Street." Her eyes flicked toward the window, then back to me. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice too bright. "I heard the baby's heartbeat," I answered. "It was beautiful." "That is amazing," she said. "I am happy for you." I studied her face. The smile did not reach her eyes. A tremor passed through her hands. "The nurse recognized Marcus," I added quietly. Color drained from her cheeks. "What?" she whispered. "She showed me a security camera image," I continued. "From last month. Marcus came in with a woman. He told them he was her partner. The appointment was for an abortion." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "I recognized him instantly," I said. "Then I recognized the woman." Silence pressed around us. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. "Tosha," I said, my voice shaking now. "Was that you?" She closed her eyes. Her shoulders slumped, all the tension leaving her body at once, replaced by something heavier. "Yes," she whispered. "It was me." The word hung in the air like smoke. My vision blurred. The room tilted slightly. The baby shifted inside me, as if reacting to the change in atmosphere. "How long?" I asked. "How long has it been going on with him?" Tears filled her eyes, spilling over quickly. "It started about a year ago," she admitted. "I swear, it was not supposed to be like that. We were drunk one night after your birthday. You went home early because you were tired. He stayed to help me clean up. One thing led to another and..." She trailed off, covering her face with her hands. My mind flashed back to that night. The way Marcus had come home later than me, claiming he helped Tosha pack up. The slight smell of alcohol on his breath. The way he had crawled into bed, wrapping himself around me, our bodies fitting together in a way that had felt comforting then. "So you slept with my husband," I said slowly, each word tasting metallic. "More than once." She nodded, her shoulders shaking. "It was a mistake at first," she said. "Then it just kept happening. I told myself I would stop. I told myself it did not mean anything. When I found out I was pregnant, everything crashed in on me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, to shatter a plate, to demand why being my friend had not been enough to stop her. Instead, I sat very still. "Why did you not tell me?" I asked. "How could I?" she replied, her voice hoarse. "You trusted me. You love him. I could not stand the thought of you looking at me the way you are looking at me now. How did you stand looking at yourself?" I shot back, anger finally sliding through the cracks. She flinched. I have been drowning in guilt, she said. You think this has been easy for me? I killed a baby that might have been his. I wake up every night thinking about it. I have nightmares about you finding out. You did not kill anything alone, I retorted. He was there. He signed the forms. He walked you in. He is not some innocent bystander in this. She nodded, tears streaming more freely. I know, she said. He told me it was the best thing. He said you had been trying and he could not do that to you. He said if you ever found out, it would destroy you. The irony of that statement hit me so hard I laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. It has destroyed something, I said. That part is true. We sat there, two women connected by a history of laughter and secrets, now facing a truth that had rearranged our roles entirely. In that moment, something inside me shifted. Not a breaking, exactly. More a rearrangement. I realized I could not control what they had done. I could not rewind time or manage their guilt. The only power I had lay in my response. I am carrying his child, I said quietly. A child I wanted. A child I prayed for. I will not let what you two did define me or this baby. Tosha nodded, sobbing. I am so sorry, she repeated. I know that does not fix anything, but it is all I have. Sorry is a beginning, not a repair, I replied. I do not know what our friendship looks like after this. I do not even know if it survives. Right now, I need to protect my sanity and my child. Another realization drifted in on the tail of that thought. Protecting myself did not require screaming matches or public scenes. It required clarity, boundaries, calm decisions. A kind of quiet wisdom settled over me. Betrayal had already done its damage. I did not need to let rage burn through what remained of my own spirit. I am going to talk to Marcus, I said, standing slowly. Not today. Not tonight. But soon. I will decide what happens next. Tosha rose too, her expression crumpled. Can I hug you? She asked, voice trembling. I looked at her, at the woman who had held me during happy tears and now stood responsible for some of my darkest. My body answered the question before my mouth did. I stepped back. Not today, I said. Hurt flashed in her eyes, but she nodded. Outside, the light had shifted. The sky wore that particular gray that appears before rain. I walked home with my hand on my belly, my footsteps steady. The turning point had come. I was no longer drowning in questions. The truth hurt, but it was a solid thing to stand on. I did not yet know the details of my plan. That would come next. All I knew in that moment was that I refused to be a passive character in a story other people had written over my life. Knowledge did not erase pain, but it did cut through confusion. Once I had heard Tosha's confession, my mind moved from spinning to organizing. I went through the motions of my days with a new undercurrent of purpose. The first step was practical. I opened a separate bank account in my name alone. The decision felt almost disloyal at first, as if I were betraying some unspoken rule of marriage. Then I remembered that my husband had managed an entire hidden relationship and a clinic visit without consulting me. The guilt loosened its hold. During my lunch breaks, I sat at my desk in the staff room, researching financial rights for married women in our state, especially those pregnant or with young children. Legal language made my head hurt, yet I forced myself to understand enough. Knowledge, again, served as a form of safety. I booked an appointment with a community legal clinic. The lawyer, a calm woman named Ms. Johnson, listened as I explained in general terms that my husband had been unfaithful and I was considering my options, pregnant with our first child. I am not ready to file for divorce, I told her. I do not even know if that is what I want. I just need to know where I stand. She nodded, sliding a notepad closer to her. We can discuss your rights, she said. We will talk about property, child support, visitation, all of that. You do not have to make any decisions today. She detailed what would happen if I decided to separate, how custody typically worked, how child support was calculated. Hearing those possibilities framed in such neutral terms stripped some of the fear away. This was not just a storm of emotions. It was also a situation with structures and processes. Next, I made an appointment with a counselor through a local women's health center. The therapist, a middle-aged black woman named Dr. Sanders, sat across from me in a room filled with soft lamps and tissue boxes. "You have been carrying a lot by yourself," she said after I poured out the story. "No wonder your body feels tense." "I feel stupid," I admitted. "I should have seen it. They were right in front of me." She shook her head gently. "Trusting someone is not foolish," she said. "The shame belongs to the people who misused that trust, not to you. Also, you are pregnant. Your energy is already divided between your body and your baby. That does not leave much for playing detective." Her words soothed something tight inside my chest. We talked about what I needed most in the coming weeks: stability, support, safety. She encouraged me to identify small actions that would reinforce my sense of agency. "Confrontation does not have to mean chaos," she said. "You can choose the time, the place, and the tone. You can decide your goals for that conversation before it happens." At home, I began to document things quietly. Dates when Marcus came home late. Times his phone lit up with messages he guarded closely. Not because I wanted ammunition, but because I wanted clarity in case he tried to rewrite the narrative. I also leaned more into the support of people who had not betrayed me. I spent more time at my mother's, listening to her stories about when she was pregnant with Jamal and me. I let Keisha drag me to a prenatal yoga class, where I learned how to breathe deeply in ways that calmed my nervous system. One evening, after class, Keisha and I sat drinking smoothies. She watched me over the straw, her eyes sharp. "You look different," she remarked. "Still tired, but more settled." "I know what I am dealing with now," I replied. "You ready to tell me?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Soon." She accepted that, but her presence itself felt like steady ground. Not everyone needed the details to offer support. Some people just needed to be nearby. Inside the flat, I began to make small changes. I took control of certain bills that had been on autopilot under Marcus' name. I moved important documents into a folder in the nursery, a place he rarely entered. I wrote a list of things I would want to take quickly if I needed to leave suddenly. The plan did not move in one straight line. Some days, I questioned myself. Perhaps I was overreacting. Perhaps the affair, the abortion, the lies, all of it, did not have to end the marriage. Plenty of couples survived infidelity. Then I would remember the image of them together at the clinic, his hand at her back, and my stomach would twist. At night, I talked to my unborn child. "Little one," I whispered, my hand on my belly, "you deserve a mother who does not live in constant fear of being lied to. You deserve peace. I am trying to build that for you." The baby responded sometimes with small kicks or flutters, movements that felt like encouragement from within. The confrontation itself began to take shape in my mind. I knew shouting would not serve me. Raised voices would only give Marcus room to paint me as irrational, emotional, hormonal. I wanted facts, calmly delivered. I wanted him to hear himself answering direct questions. I decided it would happen at home, in the living room, not in public where either of us could dodge or perform. I chose an evening when I would not be too tired from work, when my mother could be nearby in case I needed somewhere to go afterwards. The most important part of the plan was internal. I worked with Dr. Sanders to decide what my boundaries were, regardless of his reaction. Did I need him to leave the flat immediately? Did I want a trial separation? Did I require him to attend counseling, confess to certain people, cut off all contact with Tasha? Laying out those possibilities turned a vague sense of something must change into concrete expectations. One afternoon, as I folded tiny baby clothes I had bought on sale, I realized something crucial. I did not have to decide the entire future of my marriage in one conversation. The confrontation could be one step in a longer process. That thought eased some of the pressure. I am not here to punish myself with his choices, I murmured to my unborn child. I am here to protect us. The plan existed mostly in my head and in scribbled notes in a notebook I kept in my bedside drawer. It did not involve revenge. It did not involve trying to hurt him as much as he had hurt me. It involved reclaiming my dignity and shaping a life where my baby and I could breathe without constantly bracing for the next blow. Marcus did not know any of this, of course. He moved through the days with a kind of nervous cheerfulness, cracking jokes, offering back rubs, occasionally staring at me with an expression that suggested he sensed something had shifted but could not name what. The quiet before the storm had begun. The difference now was that I was not waiting helplessly. I was preparing. The confrontation took place on a Sunday evening. The day had been unusually calm. We went to church in the morning, where the choir sang about mercy and new beginnings. Afterward, my mother insisted we take home some of her cooking. Marcus loaded containers of rice and stew into the boot, laughing with her in the driveway. He seemed relaxed, almost happy. That made what I had to do both harder and easier. At home, we ate in relative silence. The television muttered in the background. I watched him eat, thinking about all the meals we had shared, all the small domestic moments that built a life. Once the dishes were cleared, I took a breath. Marcus, I said, we need to talk. He glanced over, a fork still in his hand, the cliché of that sentence not lost on either of us. That sounds serious, he joked weakly. It is. He put the fork down, wiped his mouth and sat back. Okay, he said. What is on your mind? I had rehearsed this moment in my head. Now that it had arrived, I felt strangely calm, as if the center of a storm had settled inside me. I went to the clinic on Maple Street, I began. The antenatal one. He nodded. Right. That was last week. You said everything went well. Baby is healthy. Yes, I replied. The baby is healthy. Something else happened though. His brow furrowed slightly. What do you mean? He asked. The nurse recognized you, I said. He blinked, his confusion looking genuine at first, then slipping. Recognized me how? He asked carefully. She showed me a security image, I continued. From last month. You were there with a woman. You told them you were her partner. The appointment was for an abortion. The word hung between us. I watched his face closely. Shock flickered there, quickly followed by something like resignation. Aaliyah, he began, then stopped. Do not lie, I said quietly. Please. If you lie to me now, after everything, there is no coming back from that. His shoulders sagged. He looked suddenly older, as if the weight he had been carrying finally became visible. It is not what you think, he said, then winced at his own words. Then tell me what it is, I replied. Use clear language. Tell me who she is, how long it has been going on, and if the baby she ended was yours. He swallowed hard. It was Tosha, he said finally. You already know that, do you not? Yes, I answered. I spoke to her. His eyes widened slightly. You did? He asked. Yes, I repeated. She told me everything. I want to hear your version. He rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling slowly. It started as a mistake, he said, his voice low. After your birthday party last year. We were both drunk. You had gone home early. We were cleaning up. 1 minute we were laughing, the next we were. It just happened. It did not stay a one-time thing, I pointed out. No, he admitted. We tried to stop. We said it was wrong. Then it happened again. And again. I told myself it did not mean anything, that it was just. I do not know what I thought. You thought about yourself, I said. Yes, he said, meeting my eyes for the first time since the conversation began. I was selfish. I know that. Was the baby hers yours? I asked, my voice tightening. He hesitated, then nodded. Most likely, he said. We did not do a paternity test or anything, but the timing, it lined up. I closed my eyes for a moment, absorbing the blow. The baby inside me kicked lightly, a reminder of the life I carried. You walked her into that clinic, I said. You signed forms as her partner. You were there when she ended a pregnancy that was probably yours. Then you came home and held me while I cried about another negative test. How did you live with that? He flinched as if struck. I hated myself, he said. Every time I saw you, I felt like... I do not even have the words. I told her it was the right thing to do because I could not face you with that truth. I told myself I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself, I corrected. He nodded slowly. You are right. Anger rose in me, hot and sharp. I let it pass through without letting it dictate my next words. I need you to understand something, I said. What hurts is not only that you had sex with someone else. It is that you chose her, my friend, someone you knew I trusted. It is that you let her carry your child, then stood beside her while she ended that life, all in secret. You turned both of us into extras in some story you were directing. Tears filled his eyes. I am sorry, he said hoarsely. There is no excuse. I messed up. I ruined everything. Stop making sweeping statements, I replied. Sorry is a word. I need to know what you are prepared to do now. Not in theory. In practice. He looked confused. What do you mean? He asked. I have been to see a lawyer, I said, watching the surprise flicker again. I know my rights if I decide to separate. I have seen a counselor. I have spoken to Tosha. I am not coming to this conversation empty-handed. He stared at me, absorbing the information. You have been planning to leave me? He asked, a note of panic entering his voice. I have been planning to protect myself and our baby, I replied. Whether that includes leaving depends partly on your choices now. He ran a hand over his head. What do you want me to do? He asked. I will do anything. First, I said, I need you out of this flat for a while. I cannot share a bed with you right now. You have friends. You have family. You can stay with one of them. His mouth opened as if to protest, then closed. Okay, he said quietly. If that is what you need. Second, I continued, you cut off all contact with Tosha. Not just in words. I want to see the messages. I want to see you block her. You two have done enough damage. Whatever guilt you carry, you deal with separately. He nodded, wiping his cheeks. I can do that, he said. Third, I added, if this marriage has any chance of surviving, which I am not promising, we go to counseling together. Not church counseling where they tell me to submit more and pray harder. A real therapist who can help us untangle this mess. You will be honest in those sessions. No half-truths. He swallowed. I will go, he said. I will be honest. Lastly, I said, you tell my mother and my brother that you cheated. You speak it out loud. You do not have to share the abortion detail unless you choose to, but they will not see you as the perfect son-in-law while I carry this alone. Fear flickered across his face. Your mother will never forgive me, he said. That is between you and her, I replied. I am done helping you maintain your image. He sat in silence, absorbing the list. The weight of consequences settled around him. I love you, Aaliyah, he said eventually. I do not expect you to believe that right now, but it is true. I want to fix this. I believe you feel something for me, I said. Love without respect, without honesty, is not enough anymore. The room felt both heavy and strangely light. The secrets had finally been pulled into the open. They lay between us, ugly and undeniable. Pack a bag tonight, I said. You can go to your cousin Darnell's place. We will talk about logistics for appointments and baby stuff later. I need space. He nodded slowly, tears tracking down his face. He stood, stumbling a little, and moved toward the bedroom. As he disappeared down the hallway, I sat alone on the sofa, my hand resting on my belly. The flat felt different already. Not healed, not whole, but at least honest. I whispered to my child. "We did it," I said. "We spoke the truth." The storm had broken. What remained now was the slow, patient work of rebuilding, whether with him or without him. The first night without Marcus in the flat felt hollow. I lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar quiet. No faint snoring, no rustle of him turning over, no warm weight beside me. Absence has its own sound. My mother called early the next morning. "Marcus just left my house," she said, no preamble. "He came here at dawn, crying, telling me he hurt you." "What exactly did he do?" I took a breath. This conversation had been coming. I chose my words carefully. "He cheated, Ma," I said. "With someone close to me. It went on for some time. She got pregnant. They ended the pregnancy at a clinic." Silence stretched on the other end of the line. I could almost hear my mother's heart breaking through the phone. "You are telling me that man walked another woman into a clinic, let her end his baby, then came home to you and kept trying to make a baby with you?" she said eventually, her voice shaking with fury. "Yes," I replied. A sharp breath hissed through her teeth. "I told him he was not raised right if he could hurt you like this," she said. "He sat at my table crying, saying he was sorry. Sorry does not put trust back into a broken cup." Her anger felt like a shield around me. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "You know I will support whatever decision you make." "I need space from him right now," I said. "I am not ready to say I am done forever, but I cannot live like nothing happened." "You do not have to decide today," she replied. "Take your time. Think about that baby. Think about your peace. You have seen me try to hold on to a man who kept stepping out. You know how that ended." I did know. Watching her navigate my father's repeated betrayals had shaped me more than I realized. "I will not be trapped," I said. "This baby will not grow up thinking chaos is normal." "That is my girl," she said softly. "Come over this weekend. I will make something you can actually keep down." The days that followed settled into a new rhythm. Marcus moved his clothes to Darnell's place. He still came to appointments when I allowed it, arriving on time, sitting quietly, his eyes searching my face for clues about how I felt. Sometimes I let him listen to the baby's heartbeat. Sometimes I told him I wanted to go alone. He honored my request to cut off contact with Tosha. At least, that is what he showed me. I watched him delete threads of messages, block her number, remove her from social media. There was no satisfaction in watching that digital erasure, only a sad emptiness. Tosha, for her part, sent one long message apologizing again, expressing hope that one day I might forgive her. I did not reply. My therapist reminded me that forgiveness is a process, not an obligation. Joint counseling sessions with Dr. Sanders began 2 weeks after the confrontation. Sitting side by side on that couch, talking through our history, felt surreal. "Tell me why you chose secrecy instead of honesty," she asked Marcus in one session. "I was afraid," he said. "Afraid of losing her. Afraid of being seen as the man who hurt her." "You became that man anyway," she pointed out gently. "The choice was never between hurting her and not hurting her. It was between hurting her once with the truth or over and over with the lie." Hearing someone else articulate that so clearly made my chest ache. In individual sessions, she asked me about my own patterns. "You grew up watching your mother hold on to a man who did not honor her," she said. "How do you think that shaped your tolerance levels?" "I thought I had higher standards," I admitted. "I thought choosing someone different from my father meant I would escape this." "Sometimes we repeat patterns in more subtle ways," she said. "Accepting responsibility that is not yours, smoothing over conflict, prioritizing other people's comfort over your own." Her words landed uncomfortably close to home. As my belly grew, so did my sense of self. I made decisions slower, with more intention. Some days, I felt hopeful that our marriage could be rebuilt on this new honest ground. Marcus showed up, did the work, accepted responsibility without excuses. He attended every counseling session, read books Dr. Sanders recommended, wrote me heartfelt letters about his shame and determination to change. Other days, resentment surged. I would look at him and see not my husband, but the man in that blurry security footage, escorting my friend into a clinic. Those days, I wondered if staying would be a betrayal of myself. You do not have to have a tidy answer, Dr. Sanders reminded me. You are allowed to live in the in-between for as long as you need. My mother, practical as ever, drew lines of her own. She was polite to Marcus when he came around, but the warmth had cooled. I will never stop praying for him to get his act together, she told me. I will also never forget the tears you cried. Both can be true. As my due date approached, decisions about living arrangements pressed harder. In the end, I chose to let Marcus return to the flat shortly before the baby came, with clear boundaries. He slept in the spare room. We negotiated chores, finances, and schedules like business partners. I am letting you back into this space for the sake of our child's arrival, I told him. Not as a sign that everything is fixed. He accepted that, grateful for even partial access. The delivery itself came early on a rainy night. Labor dragged across hours of pain and pushing. Marcus held my hand through contractions, whispering encouragement. My mother paced the corridor, praying under her breath. When our daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect, something in me expanded. I looked at her tiny face, her dark curls already damp with sweat, and felt a love that dwarfed every other emotion. We named her Amara, meaning grace. Watching Marcus hold her for the first time twisted my heart. This man had helped create 2 children, one born, one not. The weight of that history did not disappear in the glow of new life, yet the sight of him cradling our daughter, tears streaming down his face, complicated my anger. Life took on a new shape in the weeks after Amara's birth. Feeding schedules, nappies, sleepless nights. The flat filled with baby cries and tiny socks. Marcus stepped up as a father, changing nappies, walking her at 3 a.m. when she refused to settle. My body healed slowly. My heart healed more slowly still. Tosha remained absent. Her silence felt both painful and necessary. Our old group chat with Keisha lay dormant. A part of my life had ended, another had begun. The antagonists in my story, if they could be called that, now lived with their own consequences. Marcus carried guilt into every interaction, working to rebuild trust one small act at a time. Tosha carried regret in solitude. I carried scars along with my child. The resolution was not a neat closing of a chapter. It was a new arrangement of pieces. A life where I knew more, expected more, demanded more, not just from others, but from myself. Amara turned 3 months old on a bright morning filled with the smell of baby lotion and brewed coffee. She lay on a blanket on the floor, waving her hands at the sunlight streaming through the window. Her laughter had become my favorite sound. I sat on the sofa, watching her, sipping tea. The flat looked different now. Baby toys in the corner, framed photos of us at the hospital, a white noise machine on the bedside table. The ghosts of the past had not left completely, yet they did not inhabit every corner the way they once had. Marcus came out of the kitchen, drying his hands on a towel. "I made you some toast," he said, placing a plate on the table. "With extra butter. Doctor's orders to keep your energy up." "Thank you," I replied. He smiled, then knelt beside Amara, making silly faces until she squealed. Watching them, I felt layered emotions. Love, sadness, hope, caution. None cancelled the others out. Our counseling sessions had continued. Some had been intense, full of tears and raised voices. Others had been quieter, focused on communication skills and practical changes. Dr. Sanders reminded us repeatedly that rebuilding trust was not a straight line. "You will have days when it feels almost normal again," she said. "Then something will trigger the hurt, and you will feel thrown back. That is not failure. That is healing. I had made a decision, not in one dramatic moment, but in a series of smaller choices. I chose to stay, at least for now. I chose to see whether the man who betrayed me could also be the man who grew, who faced his flaws, who learned to live differently. Staying did not mean forgetting. It did not mean pretending the past had not happened. It meant letting the future be shaped by more than just the worst thing he had done. The more important choice, in some ways, had been about myself. I promised never again to shrink my instincts to keep the peace. If something felt wrong, I would name it. If boundaries needed to be drawn, I would draw them firmly. One afternoon, when Amara napped and the flat sat in soft quietness, I sat at the table with my journal. I wrote down what this journey had taught me. Strength does not always look like leaving dramatically. It sometimes looks like staying with eyes wide open, demanding change, and being prepared to walk away if that change does not hold. Dignity is not about pretending one has not been wounded. It lies in how one carries those wounds. In refusing to let another person's choices define one's worth. Life sometimes rearranges itself in painful ways to move a person out of places that were harming them quietly. The nurse with the tired eyes who showed me that security footage did not just reveal my husband's betrayal. She handed me an opportunity to choose differently, to shape my life with more awareness. My relationship with Tosha did not recover. I forgave her in stages, mostly for my own peace. The anger softened over time, replaced by a distant sadness for what we had lost. I did not invite her back into my inner circle. Some doors, once closed, remain closed. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same. Keisha remained my friend throughout, giving advice when asked and silence when that was what I needed. My mother watched Amara with adoration, her eyes sometimes shining with tears at the sight of me parenting with a strength she recognized from her own younger self, but with more tools than she had possessed. As months turned to years, the story of how my marriage almost broke became a chapter, not the whole book. There were birthdays, school runs, budget meetings, tired cuddles on the sofa. Trust rebuilt itself one consistent action at a time. Whenever doubt surfaced, I addressed it instead of swallowing it. One evening, years later, Marcus and I sat on a park bench watching Amara race across the playground. She was 4 then, her plates bouncing, her laughter bright. The sun dipped low, painting everything in a warm glow. "Thank you for not giving up on us," he said quietly. I looked at him, at the man who had once shattered my sense of safety, who now spent his days proving his commitment in mundane, solid ways. "I did not stay for you alone," I replied. "I stayed because I saw genuine change. I stayed because leaving or staying were both my choices, not reactions to fear. I stayed because I wanted our daughter to see what growth looks like. If that had not been real, I would have left." He nodded, accepting the truth of that. The memory of that clinic still existed in my mind, yet it no longer controlled my breathing. It became part of a larger narrative. A story about a woman who discovered betrayal, chose knowledge over denial, and moved forward with a quiet strength that centered her own dignity. If someone ever asked me how I survived that season, I would not speak first about lawyers or counseling, though both were important. I would speak about small, deliberate acts of self-respect. Opening a bank account. Asking hard questions. Saying no when a hug from someone who had hurt me was offered. Allowing myself to occupy my own life fully, not as a supporting character. My story did not end with a dramatic reconciliation scene or a clean break. It unfolded into something more complex, more human. A life where love, betrayal, forgiveness and boundaries coexisted. As the evening breeze brushed my face, I watched my daughter's silhouette against the fading light. She lifted her hands and waved at us, shouting, "Look, Mama, Daddy, look at me." "I see you," I called back, my voice steady. I saw her. I saw him. Most importantly, I saw myself. Strength did not roar in my story. It spoke in a calm voice, in decisions made over time, in the way I learned to hold my own heart with care, trusting that life, even when it breaks, can be rearranged into something that still holds beauty.